You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
Alrighty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and I am joined, as always, by your co-host, Kevin. Alex, unfortunately, is not going to be able to make it with us tonight, but we look forward to seeing him again here next week. Kevin, how you doing?
Doing good. So we are in playoffs, or some people are just getting out of the first round of their playoffs, like in our home league. And hopefully it found everyone one step closer to a championship. But if not, fear not. There are always ways to engage in fantasy football, and gambling knows no end. So just because your fantasy football team's out of it doesn't mean you can't have fun with this.
Absolutely. DFS, granted, you and I have talked about this extensively, where we are in so many darn leagues that just because I got bounced in the home league doesn't mean that I'm still not fighting for some championships and some cash and trophies in some other leagues there as well. I've got a few of them where week 15 is going to be pretty easy for me because I got several first round buys in a lot of different leagues. So that'll be a lot of fun, as well as the fact that we're going to get into a lot of fun from some DFS type of thing, right? This is typically where I start shifting more heavily into DFS onto some of this thing. And then, we're going to have a lot of fun on our Friday show where we're talking about our spreads and the lines and the games and how we see those things playing out. So still a ton of fun to be had here down the stretch and down the road. But I think I am firmly a big proponent now of not having playoffs start when teams are on bye. The amount of teams that I had a combination of Jalen Hurts and Jonathan Taylor on my roster and anchoring it, where I got bounced in the first round on some of those definitely hurt. So I think I'm on team start them when the buys are done.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the NFL redoes the schedule for the upcoming season. They've put such an emphasis into partnering with your DFS sites and promoting, the NFL.com fantasy football channel or website and everything that the shows around it and how they talk about things like this during the game. I mean, every single game you can hear one of the announcers, whether they're doing the color or the play-by-play, they make references to the over and under quite often. So gambling is entrenched into the NFL, on top of the fact that the Players Union did not like this. The Players Union is not happy about having 13 consecutive games before a bye week. And it's not needed. Like, I get it. It made for better football in the heart of the season, where sometimes you have some really bad weeks because you have so many teams on a bye. But we still had, 3 killer weeks, right? Was it week 9, week 11, and I think there was one other one.
Yeah, there was a lot of fun out there and a lot of great games during that stretch. So
I'm hoping they redo that. Like, bye week should be done by week 12. Like, you should be able to fit every single bye week in between week 6 and week 12. And I know that's a tight window, and I know that leads for a lot of teams on buys each week, and the product, they're going to have to figure out for the TV games and whatnot. But guys, it's better for football this way. Give these teams a chance to reset in the middle of the season and get rid of these week 4, week 5 bye weeks, and then they have to play all the way down the stretch. Like, weeks 6 through 12 is when we should be having bye weeks for all 32 teams. And then it's better product on the field, end of season, and fantasy football definitely helps because you're not fighting bye weeks, first round playoffs.
Right. Well, it's one of those too that it's also, I'm a big believer that part of the popularity of NFL stems from fantasy football because of just doing what we do and talking to folks here. How many folks came to even start watching football and caring about what goes on the NFL field and what goes on outside of the field stems from the fact that they got involved with fantasy football. It wasn't the fact that they were a football fan. It was the fact that they, got talked into playing in a work league or a family league or whatever. And just kind of that fun and that passion grew around that thing. And then they became a fan of the game, which is not an uncommon tale there. And so when you're talking about, one of the things that helps bring in so many viewers and so many fans into the sport there, putting that thing where it sandwiches that. And, for the most part too, I don't know that the NFL really takes into account, what fantasy players and managers would like to see happen as far as bye weeks are concerned. That's not their priority. And I get that, but it is just kind of an interesting dichotomy of how that kind of looks and works.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's enough people against it that I think it does have to change. Like the NFL does do whatever they want to do a lot of the time, but when you're having the players union and the fans and the gambling committee community all on board with something, that's a whole lot of heat coming at the NFL. And if they're going to respect the shield, well, this is what everyone who's paying for this wants. Like, you have to make this happen.
But you think about it too, how, even if you have it where the bye week runs through week 13 and stops and they no longer have a week 14 bye and you scoot to, you're talking about one less game in between there type of thing. Because you're going to take two of the teams that were on bye, move their bye somewhere in the middle of that stretch there, and then take one of the other teams and move it to another week there. So, and we saw some of those deals where there was lighter games anyway. I mean, there was one of the games where there was only 12 teams playing, and we saw some of these other ones where there was, 13, 14 playing on Sunday. So it's not like we didn't see stretches of that, of a lower game count anyway throughout the season. So it's not really doing that much different there.
No, I mean, and that could work. I mean, if you do it weeks 6 through 13, that's 8 weeks of the NFL season. That's right. 4 teams a week, right? Like you're rotating through, and then it's done with. Like, you don't have some weeks with just 2, and then 1 week with 8 teams on bye, and you pay these schedule makers a lot of freaking money to figure this out. Have them figure it out.
Yeah, I agree. Before we kind of get going into some of this, we do have a question coming in. James Conner or Elijah Mitchell? This one coming from Nate on YouTube. Appreciate you tuning in, Nate. Always a pleasure seeing you in the comments there. This one's tough for me because of the fact that we saw James Conner go down at the end of that game, right? Like during that last play, things like that. They had the medical staff on the field taking a look at him after the game there. And I know that they were saying that they were going to send him for further tests on this one. So that's one of those that I'm going to play the wait and see game on James Conner there. Elijah Mitchell is another one that we've got to wait for him to get over the injury going there. And it's not necessarily clear whether or not that he is going to be available for you this week. But if both of them are available and healthy, I'm going to go with James Conner. I think that he has been the better back down the stretch and fits what Arizona wants to do. And he's far more likely to get into the end zone.
Not so fast. I'm gonna pull Lee Corso.
All right.
James Conner. I have not seen results from the MRI that James Conner took today.
I haven't either.
Now, with that, a lot of people, not we, but a lot of people expected Chase Edmonds back. So, if Chase Edmonds is truly ready, and James Conner is even questionable, they want both these guys healthy down the stretch. What better game to sit James Conner, let him rest, and get Chase Edmonds back into the swing of things than against the Detroit Lions, which is who they play this week. So because of that, I'm more cautious about James Conner than I am Mitchell. I think Mitchell comes back from this concussion. I think he comes back. They're playing the Falcons, who another terrible run defense. If Elijah Mitchell gets cleared, he's the guy I'm playing. Conner might have more upside if he were fully healthy, but the fact that he's dinged up and the fact that the Cardinals are in playoff contention mode for the number 1 seed, if he's not full go, they're going to lean on Chase Edmonds more. And then you're hoping for the touchdown upside that Conner was getting you at the beginning of the season. I don't know that they're going to risk his legs against Detroit. There are going to be bigger games that they need him down the stretch. So I'm leaning towards Mitchell, but definitely keep up on the injury reports.
Absolutely. Does Debo scare you off of Mitchell at all?
Not with Mitchell. Debo doesn't play running back, but 5% when Mitchell's in the game. It's when Mitchell's been out. These last 2 times where Mitchell's been out with concussion and the ankle sprain, I think, where Debo's lived in the backfield. So it's only when Mitchell's not in the game because they don't trust Jeff Wilson Jr. to carry that full load by himself or Jermichael Hasty to spell him, like whatever Shanahan's reasons are. It only seems to be when Mitchell can't go. So if Elijah Mitchell's on the field and he's playing, he will see the lion's share of the touches.
All right. I like it. I like it a lot. Kevin, any other thoughts on recapping week 14 before we start getting into the pine and shines?
Not necessarily capping week 14, but holy COVID between yesterday and today. 64 players hit the COVID list.
Yep.
The LA Rams and the Cleveland Browns have gone into intensive COVID protocols. So the Rams have completely shut down their facility as they're trying to get this under wraps. I believe the Browns are doing pretty much the same thing. We just saw what happened to the Lions. They're missing 16 players against the Broncos, I believe, this past Sunday.
Yeah.
Some COVID, some flu, some injury. Like it wasn't all the same thing. But holy smokes, the NFL does have to be a little bit worried about this, that they're heading down the stretch into or towards the playoffs. And we are going to have not necessarily tainted games, but games that could be, that the outcome could be shifted because a number of players popping hot. So we're going to find out how good these protocols are. It's crazy. These teams in general have so many of these players vaccinated, and we get to this point in the season and it feels like it's not doing them any good. Now, I'm sure it is in some respects, but for the fantasy football purposes, right, and the product on the field, man, I hope these guys can get back out there like ASAP, because 65 players and a lot of big name guys, like high impact players, not only skill position players, but offensive and defensive line players that affect games. This is a big problem we have right now. So we're going to see how many of these guys can clear and get those 2 negative tests before the games on Sunday. It's a good thing that it happened at the beginning of the week and we're not seeing this Thursday, Friday. Otherwise, we would have a whole nother mess on our hands. So keep up on your waiver wires. Understand where the bench depth is and be ready to move when they rule these guys out. So I'm sure we'll talk about this when we get to the waiver wire targets, but you need to be looking for your guy's handcuff if your guy is on this COVID list right now.
And not only that, right? Like if you've got guys that are, high impact guys that are going to be playing in Sunday night and Monday night, especially, like you need to also have a backup plan going into that, especially here in week 15 of the playoffs. Like, you think about Darrell Henderson was a guy that was on track to play, landed on the list, didn't clear the protocols there. And we saw Sony Michel go, right? So if you had the handcuff with Sony Michel, like, it helped you out there. But for instance, if you didn't have that, if you hadn't prepared on that, you would have been in a much bigger world of hurt there as far as fantasy football is concerned.
Well, and as crazy as it sounds, how many people lost their game because Tyler Higbee couldn't go? Like Henderson, we at least knew Saturday night into Sunday morning, so there was time to react.
Right.
And you could plan with that accordingly in one way or another before the morning kickoffs. Higbee, we didn't find out about until late Sunday night, Monday morning, where Higbee wasn't going to go. By that time, your slate of games was done.
Right.
So
you didn't have really anywhere to pivot. Absolutely.
You're scrambling to try and get something done. You're looking for one of the Bears' 6 tight ends, hoping they fall into not one of the Bears. Before the Sunday night game, you're hoping for one of the Bears' tight ends to fall in the red zone. You're hoping for, someone not named Zach Ertz on Arizona's roster to fall in. You're looking for Bryce Hopkins and the other guy's name just escaped me.
Was it Blanton?
Yes. I mean, you're trying to find who the hell they are and get them added to your roster. It was crazy. But the number of people who were like 2-3 points behind heading into that game Monday night thinking, okay, we're good, and just were working, right? They were working. They didn't pay attention to it. They knew the game was that night, didn't think about it, and then lost because they open their app and they look at their phone and go, why the hell is Higbee out? He's not playing. Like, I just lost because of a tight end getting caught in the 11th hour. That sucks. I feel bad for those guys. That's terrible.
Yeah. So one of those that, again, more, make sure that you've got other plans made and you've got a way that you can pivot if you need to. So question coming in from Mark on YouTube. Got to start 2, Mooney, Osborne, Ayuk, and Pittman. Who you going with here?
Osborne and Ayuk. Someone could make a strong case for Mooney, and I wouldn't deny it. Stay away from Michael Pittman. You do not want any part of him going up against the Patriots this week. So
no.
I will get to more on him later in the show.
Yes, you will.
Hint, hint, wink, wink.
Make sure you stay tuned.
But, I mean, oh, damn it. I just lost where I was. Sorry, guys.
I'm probably going
Mooney
with
and
Mooney
Osborne.
kind
of that does kind of look nice going up against each other. With Thielen being down, you expect him to miss another game with that high ankle sprain, and he does provide some of that relief for Justin Jefferson at times. The secondary in Minnesota has been lackluster, and Justin Fields is slowly starting to get together. Like, is he a polished, veteran quarterback? No, he's still playing like a rookie, but he's playing like a rookie where the game is starting to slow down a little bit. And especially in 2 quarterback leagues, Fields is coming through. So Mooney, and I think I can get on board that. Mooney and Osborne are probably the way I'm going. I don't expect the Niners to to throw the ball a whole hell of a lot against Atlanta. So I think Ayuk is a desperation play in case one of those 2 guys can't go.
Right. And Mark is chiming in saying that he's been confused. It's a split between some streamers saying Pittman and some say sit him. And, for the most part, right, like Pittman has been very, very good down the stretch. Like, I can understand anybody that wants to give the reaction and say that Michael Pittman needs to be in your starting lineup because he's been very good. He's been a very, very solid wide receiver down the stretch here, but up against a rather tough matchup here. And so, that being the case, right, like I don't see him necessarily being able to do a ton against that Patriots team. I think Indy is going to try and lean on the run game, try and slow that game out. By the way, New England's going to try and do the same thing and try and run the ball. So you're going to see a whole lot of, I have a feeling of 3 yards in a cloud of dust, to use one of your favorite sayings here in this game. Going through, and I don't think that leaves much on the passing. And I know that Kevin's going to get heavily into the Michael Pittman later in the show as well.
The thing with Michael Pittman where you need him to hit this week and be worth that fantasy roster spot is he has to get in the end zone. He is not going to get there off of receptions and yardage alone. And touchdowns are not easy to come by. And again, against this Patriots team, I promise I will get into this further as we get into the show and get into our segment. But Michael Pittman is not the guy you want this week. I have him in 10 different leagues. I'm sitting him in 9 of them. And the only reason I'm starting him in the 1 is because I am decimated at wide receiver and I don't have any other option.
Right. So, and that's not the case of what you've got going there, Mark, with what you're talking about with Mooney, Osborne, and Ayuk and Pittman. Personally, I'd probably roll any of those 3 over Pittman in this situation here. But I like Mooney. I like Osborne in that one. Mooney seems to be Justin Fields' number 1 target, the way that he looks at that and goes through it. So, and then you made the case for Osborne already. So I like those ones there. Ayuk has some upside there as well, but he's playing third fiddle when it comes to the receiving game behind both Debo and behind Kittle. And both of those 2 guys have come on very strong lately. So I would, that's how I would roll there. So, but thanks for the question, Mark. If you have any other questions, anything like that, let us know, guys. Again, if you have questions, comments, anything like that, put them in the comments here, put them in the chat. Let's go ahead and talk about them. We really do enjoy being able to talk to you guys about your fantasy rosters, your fantasy situations, and see what we can do to help you guys kind of bring home some cash and trophies. That's why we do this, is really, really enjoy talking to you guys and help you guys trying to win your league and win that cash and trophies. But we're going to go ahead and head straight on over into the Pines and the Shines for week 14 here. So let's hit them up. And we got Alex's that we'll call him out there as well. So I'll read Alex's off and then read through mine. And then Kevin, you'll be up there. So starting with Alex. Alex told you to pine Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan went 19 for 28, only 191 yards and 1 touchdown. That's a hit for Alex on his pine. I called for Kyle Pitts to be a pine, 5 receptions, 6 targets, 61 yards. I'm going to call that a hit, underperforming his projections there as well. Kevin, tell us about your pine.
I said pine James Robinson, and I should almost get double points for this one because 6 carries and 4 yards is absolutely atrocious. I did not think it was going to be this bad, but nevertheless, that was definitely a gold star, no doubt, pine of the week.
Absolutely, it was. You nailed that one. Like when you first said it on last week, I was like, "Ooh, really? Like that's a bold take there." James Robinson's been decent down the stretch, and man, oh man, did that one just hit for you and hit big. So congratulations on that one. And if I could award you 2 points, I could, but it only allows me for 1. So congratulations there, leader in the clubhouse right now. So let's go ahead and head on over into the Shines. And so Alex called for the Texans quarterback, whoever it was, to have a monstrous game there on his Shine, and originally called Tyrod Taylor. We told him that Tyrod may not play. He called for the Davis Mills to hit. Well, Davis Mills had a serviceable game with over 300 yards passing and 1 touchdown. Still finished outside of QB1 territory there, and kind of finished around about his projection. So while it was a serviceable play in Superflex 2 QB type of leagues, in a single QB league, you were very disappointed if you started Davis Mills because there were a number of quarterbacks ahead of him on the week there. I called for Aaron Rodgers to have a big game because, well, he was playing the Bears, and that was quite literally my entire logic behind that one. And boy, did he deliver. 29 on 37, 341 yards and 4 tutties.
Yeah, he still owns them.
Absolutely.
And I know
Got
Chicago
a bigger share.
Chicago people and the team was trying to rally behind him, saying that like it was going to be some, motion to pull their head out of their backsides and beat the Packers. And they gave him a shot there to begin with, right? In the first half, they gave the Packers a game. But the Bears forgot to come out of the locker room for the second half. Aaron Rodgers did not. And he proceeded to pour it on.
Yes, he did.
My shine was Javonte Williams, 15 carries, 73 yards, and a touchdown. He also tacked on 1 reception for 10 yards and a second touchdown. And that was even with Melvin Gordon scoring 2 touchdowns of his own in that game as the Broncos handily defeated the Detroit Kittens to move to 7-6 here on the season. So Javonte Williams is absolutely paying off late in the season if you had the ability and the wherewithal to hold on to him through the first half of the season. And maybe people thought that he was going to take over sooner. He's still not quite taking over. As we saw, Gordon's still highly involved in this offense, but Javonte Williams is freaking electric, guys. Like, I don't care what you have to do. If you are in a keeper league, you give up whatever draft pick or whatever you need to keep Javonte on your roster for next season, because it will continue. This guy's electric. He has a high motor. He fights for every single yard. He does not fall backwards. Everything's falling forward, and he is fun to watch. So absolutely. Javonte Williams, I'm taking the shine on that one as a hit. So another 2-0 week for the champ here. So we're doing all right.
Right, and despite my best efforts, I can't seem to catch you right now because you keep putting up some great weeks there. So right now, as it sits, Alex 13, 14, and 1 on his pines and shines on the season. I've moved to 16 and 12, and Kevin sitting with a 3-game lead here, 19 and 9 on the season. So no, you've been killing it this year and doing a great job there. And I hope that I can try and sneak a couple in here just to make this margin a little bit closer here down the stretch, but I'm running out of real estate really quickly.
You got some time. It's only 3 games.
True.
3 games. So
it's only 3 games, about 3 weeks left. So
that's all
if
right.
I pick up a game a week, we'll be tied at the end of this thing.
Exactly.
There we go. All righty. So a lot of fun there, and we always have a blast going through and doing this. We do have another question coming in there. Mark asking, should I drop Damian Harris for Rashad Penny? I don't plan on playing either of them, only in desperation. Rashad Penny is worth a pickup to me in most leagues, and sitting atop of the waiver wire pickups there. But if Ramondre Stevenson is not rostered in your league, that is also a guy that you need to be picking up because the Patriots have shown that they are going to run the ball and they're going to run the ball and they are going to run the ball. And if there is only one back there, that running back is going to get about 20 opportunities a game to run that. Rashad Penny may get that, but we've seen the Seattle be game scripted out of being able to run the ball even over the last few weeks here. So is Rashad Penny worth a pickup? Absolutely. But I probably wouldn't drop Damian Harris myself for him.
I would agree. Damian Harris, yes, his hamstring's still a little tender. He was limited on Tuesday. That doesn't necessarily mean anything coming out of the bye week.
Right.
We'll see how his workload. You keep an eye on that come Thursday, Friday. But I wouldn't drop Damian Harris for Rashad Penny. I completely agree with Derek. The problem with Penny is he has games like this, and then he plays, and then in the third play of this upcoming game, he gets hurt, right? We've seen this time and time again. Penny shows that flash of why they spent first-round draft capital on him 4 years ago, and then he gets hurt, and then he's out another couple weeks. So I'm not giving up a solid RB2 in Damian Harris when he's healthy and a guaranteed floor production for a guy who could possibly see the lion's share. But if he gets dinged up, it's going to go back to Alex Collins. So
right.
I would definitely try and drop someone lesser than.
Right. Well, and you look at it too, right? And I know that the fantasy communities and Twitter and everything else has really kind of rallied around this cry that Pete Carroll saying that he deserves an opportunity to be a workhorse guy and be the lead guy and yada, yada, yada. Well, that's why you spent a first-round draft pick on him all the way back then. And he hasn't capitalized on that. But more so than that,
he's not available.
Right. And the best ability is availability most of the time, especially when it comes to fantasy. But looking at that, I would also tell you to very much temper what Pete Carroll says in a presser because of the fact that he is one of those coaches that uses a lot of coach speak and uses a lot of those things that don't necessarily translate to what we see on the field there. And we've seen that play out time and time and time again. So while Carroll is saying that, I don't necessarily put a ton of stock behind that one. We're just going to see it play out that way because of the fact that Seattle is out of options when it comes to running backs because, while they brought Adrian Peterson in, Adrian Peterson is not the Adrian Peterson that the name recognizes there. Also the fact too, Alex Collins is not that guy. He's just not. He's not that guy. And DJ Dallas is serviceable here and there as a spell back, but not as a workhorse type of back. So, this is again one of those that I don't know that I'm going to trust my playoffs here down the stretch for Rashad Penny. The only way that I'm going to trust that one is if I'm coming as a heavy underdog. I am decimated by injuries, and I absolutely need somebody with a ceiling. And Rashad Penny can give you a ceiling to try and make a run because I'm a huge dog going into a week. That's the play that I would put Rashad Penny in.
Yeah. Super talented, super health resistant.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's the biggest problem. Playoffs, you can't leave anything to chance in the playoffs.
Nope.
So
nope.
It's one thing if your star player has a down game, you had to play him, but don't take home run sake for the sake of, just having a splashy guy in your roster.
Right. Yeah. In the playoffs, you're going to, if you're the favorite team, you got studs all the way across your roster, you're going to play the guys that got you there. If you snuck in, you're the heavy underdog, things like that. Like that's where you try and go with the Rashad Penny. That's where you go with the guy with a splash and a ceiling. But, in most cases, Damian Harris will still give you the similar type of ceiling and a safer floor. So. Absolutely. Let's go ahead and head on over to the clutch and the not so much. So, Kevin, who came in clutch for your fantasy roster?
So in our home league, which is a super flex, my clutch players were both my quarterbacks, Taysom Hill and the GOAT Tom Brady. They both had extremely great games. Let's see, Taysom, 15 to 21 for 175 yards, and then 11 carries for 75 on the ground, 2 tutties. His one long touchdown of 40 yards should get you a bonus in most leagues, which is always nice to see. The thing that scares me about Taysom is 2 more turnovers. Well, one more turnover. They recovered one, lost the other, but was sacked 3 times, fumbled twice. Like, ball security. You're playing the Jets. Like, ball security. Come on. So, having Alvin Kamara back definitely helped that Saints team big time. And then with Tom Brady, the awesome game that was the afternoon CBS game here in our local market. 31 of 46, 363. Let's see, one passing touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown, and really just he made it work when he had to, right? The big play late. That's wrong. 2 passing touchdowns. I was probably saying Mike Evans got 1 before Perryman did. Sorry. So 3 total touchdowns. Managed the game. The defense was gassed there at the end. You could see it as the Bills kept creeping back in that game. And Tom Brady found a way. Little crossing route, 1 defensive miscue by the Bills, and Perryman was off to the races. Game over.
Yep. Absolutely. My clutch came last Thursday night. Dalvin Cook, who was one of those that, do you play him? Do you not play him? And this was very much one of those that we've seen Dalvin Cook do these types of games before, where he comes in, plays on a shoulder that is extremely banged up, in which most players wouldn't play on that type of thing. He explodes.
Yeah, he should play in that shoulder harness every game, because the last 3 times he's played in that shoulder harness, monster games. He should just do it every game. Like, just make it part of his normal equipment, just to save himself from potential injury, because he goes lights out every time he wears that damn thing.
Absolutely. He, over 200 yards on the ground, couple of touchdowns. Like, he was phenomenal for my fantasy team, but alas, it was not meant to be. And, even with that great performance, I got booted from the home league playoffs here. Part of it had to do with the fact that I also had, Terry McLaurin, who, yes, I get it that he got injured, and he was still my not so much, right? Because before he got injured, he had seen 4 targets and had 0 receptions, 0 yards, 0 anything on that one, and put up a goose egg for me on that one.
Yeah, Terry, definitely a not so much candidate.
He was friendly Terry, not scary Terry.
Yeah, my not so much was Zeke. He's hurt, guys. Like, he's so hurt, it's not even funny. And yes, they kind of shied away from Zeke because the Cowboys felt like they had the game in hand, but they damn near just need to sit him down. Like, they just need to sit Zeke down at this point. If the Cowboys have any aspirations of going deep into the playoffs, they need to give him a week or 2 weeks off. And yes, it sucks because it's fantasy playoffs, but for the sake of the Dallas Cowboys and what they're trying to do within a season, an injured Zeke will not win you a Super Bowl. You need him to be 85 to 95% healthy going into the playoffs, because right now he only looks about 40 to 50% healthy. They use him for 13, 14 touches a game just to keep defenses honest, and that's it.
Yeah, definitely not the Zeke that we're accustomed to seeing there. Tony Pollard may be back there as well. That could help spell the Zeke a little bit there as well. And but you're right. I think they need to do something in order to keep those playoff hopes or a deep playoff run alive, because that's where we've seen Dallas be very successful in winning games is establishing that run game, and that run game, Zeke has got to be a big part of it to do that. So awesome. Well, Kevin, I think that's going to wrap up the clutch and the not so much, and that's going to head us over into props fantasy. What thoughts you got about props fantasy?
I think props fantasy is great. It's a new way to play fantasy football. You get to combine, you get to go against people from different leagues, different types of formats, and props fantasy will automatically use their micros to come up with the common denominator of a scoring system to make it even between your two teams. So Derek, I know you and I are in a bunch of leagues together, but even if we're in a couple leagues apart, right? Like we can jump on there, challenge each other, and off to the races we go. We get to see who has the better week. So it's a cool concept because you can take, office mates who maybe you're not in the same league and still play against each other each week if you wanted to. Like just kind of see how the season shakes out. My team versus your team for an entire season, and let's throw some money on it. And with props, you're able to do that. So very cool concept, a different way of playing fantasy football. But nevertheless, it's a whole lot of fun because it incorporates what Sleeper and Yahoo do, soon to be ESPN as well, is what we're being told, and combine that all into one central site that syncs rosters automatically once you adjust them, and then you can kind of just go there for central scoring and see how it shakes out.
Absolutely. And so one of those things that, if you guys have ever gone, you know what, I really want to take on a good old boys team and see how a roster I put together can stack up against one of their rosters. This is the place to do it, right? Going through here and adding, typically add at least one of my rosters on here every single week, just so that you guys can do a challenge on it, things like that. And so that is the case right here. You can take a challenge here. Let's go ahead and see if we happen to have any challengers that we can see here, and just see if there's anybody available. Not yet. So guys, if you are wanting to take on the good old boys FF when it comes to a fantasy roster and the challenge there, the challenge is open. Go ahead and head over to Props Fantasy. You can find us. It's down in the description, in the link on in the show notes here and in the description. So, but Kevin, I'm going to show you this team here, and I know that you're in this league here as well, and we'll just see what you think of this particular roster. So far the starters are Cordero Patterson, Zeke, Tyreek Hill, Alvin Kamara, Cooper Kupp, Najee Harris, and then we'll have the quarterbacks of Dak and Matt Stafford there. Any ideas on which league that one is? That's one.
Damn it. Looks like the Vampire League.
That is correct.
Yeah, from being the vampire, and this is what you're able to accumulate. Dude, you and I had polar opposite experiences in this
Yes,
league.
we did.
And we were both the vampires. I could not catch a break. And you managed to hit guys at the right time and strike, and were rewarded handsomely for your efforts, because this starting roster is absolutely crazy.
Yeah. And that is one of those things that it's absolutely fun to play. So and the reason I bring this one up here too is not only it's a roster that, bring your A game to try and take this one on, but B, it's the fact that, right, like for those of you not familiar with a vampire roster, you don't get to draft anybody, right? Like the rest of the league drafted, and then Kevin and I, being the vampires, had to go through and pick up what was left on the free agency pool and the waiver wires to put together a roster to try and win games. And when you win games, you can steal a player from your opponent and build your roster out that way. And so you're right, managed to just hit a couple of games right and managed to get in there to to win that, and as definitely had a very fun experience there, and we're going to see how that team does down the stretch and in the playoffs. But guys, go ahead and head down in the show notes, down in the description. You can click the link there, head over to Props Fantasy, and challenge us here. I'll look forward to being able to do that. But Kevin, let's go ahead and head over here real quick, and let's take a look at some of these various rosters and lineups that are here. And we're just kind of going to go through a couple of ones right up top here. And so we've got a team called De Jesus's team and PKSDG's team. And let's just take a look at the matchup here. And so we're going to pick the roster here, pick who we think we're going to win. Matchups, Dak versus Kirk, Amari Cooper versus Tyreek Hill. You've got Gallup versus Chenault, McLaurin versus Chase, Aaron Jones versus Kamara, Jonathan Taylor versus Eckler, Waller versus Knox, Thielen versus Patterson, Mooney versus Foreman, Westbrook Nehine versus Valdez-Scantling, and Kyle Pitts versus A.J. Dillon. So off the bat there, which way do you tend to lean?
I like the names on De Jesus's team more, but some of these matchups are brutal, right? Like we don't know how Terry McLaurin's going to bounce back from the injury. Aaron Jones is coming back from an injury of his own, was just outsnapped by A.J. Dillon.
And he's been outsnapped a couple of weeks now by Dillon.
Yeah. Jonathan Taylor is going up against a Patriots team who we know is going to key in on him. So I expect that game flow to try. They're going to try and do the same game flow as they did against Tampa Bay, I'm expecting. So that'll be a little interesting because, well, New England's secondary is much better than what Tampa Bay's is. On the flip side, you get Alvin Kamara back. Austin Eckler, while questionable, is still a very strong focal point of the Chargers and what they're doing. And I like the Justin Fields matchup against the Minnesota Vikings. So I think I'm going to side with PKSDG's team because I like the matchups more. I think I like the players more on De Jesus's team. But the matchups is what's tilting in this one for me. Should be a close game though.
Yeah, it should be a fun one. I also like the matchups there as well. So that's the way we're gonna vote on that one there. So all righty, let's go ahead and we're gonna head back to the arena here, and we're gonna do one more roster pick here. Let's just look through. Somebody challenged themselves with their same team there. That's fun.
Up and to the right. There you go. Go up from there.
You want this one right here?
Yep.
All righty. So we've got I Am Based God's team versus Vote for the Bears team in this one. Let's go ahead and take a look at the matchups here. And the matchups, Herbert versus Jackson, Keenan Allen versus Cooper Kupp, Josh Reynolds versus Hunter Renfrow, Metcalf versus CeeDee Lamb, Dalvin Cook versus James Robinson, Saquon Barkley versus Najee Harris, Gronkowski versus Fant, Connor versus Jones, Hawkinson versus McKissick, Harris versus Conklin, Elijah Mitchell versus Van Jefferson. So, Kevin, which way do you tend to lean?
On this one, I'm going with the underdog here. I'm going for Vote for Bears team. Like Cooper Kupp's been on a freaking tear. Hunter Renfrow is extremely underrated, even still this season. The way he's been used, I expect James Robinson to bounce back, and he'll be more involved. On the flip side, Barkley, you and I are not fans of Saquon Barkley this season. We called it at the beginning of the season and got roasted by people by saying, don't draft Saquon. You're going to regret it. We got absolutely roasted. And here we are. And you've been able to have Saquon for, 6 games this season? How's that shaking out for you? So I'm going with the vote for the Bears team. I like the underdog in this matchup. I think Lamar Jackson is coming back. It's not a high ankle sprain. It's just an ankle sprain. So I don't think he's going to miss any time here. And I think he might be the reason puts this team just over the top.
I like it. Let's go ahead and go with the underdog here, and that's the way we'll go with that one. So absolutely love it. Again, guys, Props Fantasy is a great way to play and a lot of fun here. Absolute blast when it comes to being able to shake out some of your rosters versus some other rosters out there. So even though you and your buddy may not be in the same league, you still get the chance to play each other every so often with your rosters and get rid of that argument of, no, my team would beat your team type of thing. And instead of breaking out, pen and paper, the Excel sheet, all of that, Props Fantasy has got a way for you to just go head to head in it and take out all the variables with it when it comes to scoring and some of those bonuses. And so you guys see a straight up even matchup and you're able to have a lot of fun. You can find the link to it down in the show notes and the description there. So give it a click, head over there, sign up, play. And most importantly, give the good old boys a challenge there on that one. We look forward to seeing who's challenges when Kevin and I go live again on Friday. We'll take a look at that and pick a person to go up against. So a lot of fun. Look forward to it. Guys, Props Fantasy is a new way to play fantasy. Make sure you check it out. Lots of fun there. But Kevin, let's go ahead and, we've got some waiver wire to talk about here. And, for the most part, during this time of season, waiver wire is as much about finding your guy as it is about playing defense as well, right? There's strategy to it that you may be set and you don't necessarily need a guy, but the question is do you want to go up against him in your fantasy roster or your fantasy playoffs? The answer may be no. So there's also an element of defense to be played here as well, and some strategy that you can play with this thing as well. So let's go ahead and we'll head to the waiver wire rankings, and you can find these waiver wire rankings on the website, goodoldboysff.com. You can check it out there. But top 5 for QBs: Tua, Jimmy G, Ben Roethlisberger, Justin Fields, Tyler Huntley. And I know already you're going to say Justin Fields needs to be higher, but what are your thoughts on this one?
I'm going Justin Fields 1, Jimmy G 2, then Tua, then Big Ben, then Tyler Huntley. I think the thing that puts you over the top is Fields with his legs and what he's been able to do. Jimmy Garoppolo has thrown for multiple touchdowns in 4 of his last 5 games. Like, he is quietly doing a very, very good job holding off all the Trey Sermon truthers and not letting this kid on the field while the Niners are scratching and clawing their way in towards a potential playoff berth. So he's been on a tear. The running game is super sound, and they're going up against the Atlanta Falcons, which is always a friendly matchup. Justin Fields, a friendly matchup against the Minnesota Vikings. So that is also something that I'm leaning towards, where he can use his arms and his legs. Big Ben, he manages to get you points, guys, but it is so stinking ugly.
It's garbage time.
Yeah, like, it just scares me having to count on that. So that's why he's so far down the list. And Tua, Miami has been playing a lot better down the stretch, in large part because of their defense. And we're just going to have to see how they look coming off their bye and his connection with Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki. So Tua's not a bad option either, but definitely Fields first. You could argue Tua or Jimmy, and I'm not, I may not have some big counterpoint. I'm okay with you leaning either way there, but those guys are definitely 2A and 2B, and then it's Roethlisberger, and I'm staying away from Tyler Huntley. I'm not playing him at all.
No, the only way that I'm going to roster Tyler Huntley is if I don't really have any other options. It's a super flex type of league. There aren't any other options out there, and I've got Lamar Jackson. I may roster Tyler Huntley just to make sure that I've got a quarterback that I can play. But no, I'm right there with you. I'm not looking to play Tyler Huntley unless absolutely in dire situations and have to. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and head over to the running backs here real quick. And so we'll just go top 6. Tevin Coleman, Ty Johnson, Rex Burkhead, Boston Scott, Dearness Johnson, Rashad Penny. Thoughts?
I think Rashad Penny's going to end up being number 1, right?
I think so too.
He has probably the clearest path to consistent touches. So there's nothing wrong with that. Honestly, number 2, if DeAndre Swift can't go, I might roll the dice on Craig Reynolds again. Like, see if you can get lightning to strike in a bottle twice. and then Royce Freeman. So saw 6 catches in his game last week, had 11 carries. So it wasn't a beautiful way to get you fantasy points, but if he's going to go and they're going to be leaning on him in Houston, he has a very safe floor if you are in emergency situations there. I'm staying away from every Philadelphia running back. I just don't trust how they're going to break all that up, whether it's Boston Scott, Jordan Howard coming off of IR, even Miles Sanders given a choice. I'm just not going to be messing with that. Dearness Johnson is basically in the no-fly zone right now. Kareem Hunt will be back. All things are, well, I guess they were talking about Kareem Hunt may not play this next game. They may sit him again. But it's time for Nick Chubb to earn his paycheck. And if you're Cleveland, you can't be messing around with this anymore. You're fighting for a division. So kind of a shorter list there, but definitely Penny 1. And then I'd probably go Dearness Johnson 2, only because he's proven. And then Craig Reynolds and Royce Freeman.
I like it. Oh, let's go ahead and head on over to the wide receivers here. Alrighty, so Devontae Parker, Robbie Anderson, Jameis Crowder, Sterling Shep, AJ Green, KJ Osborne, Rashad Bateman, Kadarius Toney, and Kendrick Bourne, top 10 there, and already doing some updating there as we go. But yeah, so there's some interesting names up here when it's all said and done. Oh, I'm on computer. Alrighty, so what are your thoughts here on that list?
I think this list is all dependent on what you need out of your team this week. Like, KJ Osborne probably has the combination of highest floor and high ceiling, so that's always nice to have. Kendrick Bourne is another guy who has a fairly safe floor, albeit the floor is low, but he's not going to get you a goose egg because they're not going to be playing in 45-mile-an-hour winds again. Robbie Anderson, if DJ Moore is unable to go. So DJ Moore got dinged up in the game last week, and if he can't go, Robbie Anderson, coming off of his best game of the season, there is some light there. Now, I don't think anybody had him on a roster or in a starting position to capitalize on said great game this past week, but he's definitely someone to be keeping an eye out for. And then if you scroll down the list just a little bit, you will see a gentleman down there named Joshua Palmer, who is playing for the LA Chargers. And Palmer has been the benefactor of some pretty deep throws from Justin Herbert lately. And that's exactly the type of offense that the Chargers are going to need to keep pace with the Kansas City Chiefs as they continue to kind of find themselves and get back into form. So if you are needing a home run play, Joshua Palmer is not a terrible option for a home run play. Jalen Guyton's hit a couple of deep plays as well. So either one of those Chargers wide receivers for the big play potential. If you are a big dog this week and you need to make a splash, those two are your best home run guys. Robbie Anderson might be number 3 as far as the home run factor goes. But yeah, this is an interesting list, and it all depends on what you need out of your team this week.
I like it. Let's go ahead and finish off with the tight ends here real quick. You got Gerald Everett, CJ Uzma, Njoku, and Brevin Jordan. Thoughts on this one?
It's still, Gerald Everett, how is he still only on 22% of rosters? Like,
right.
I get it. He's not catching 7 balls a game and scoring every other week, but he's been pretty serviceable, and Russell Wilson is not afraid to use him. The rest of these guys on this list, you are hoping for, lightning to strike. And that's really what it is. Gerald Everett out of this list at least gets you a floor that is, 5-6 points, which isn't great. But you know what? If it's better than taking a goose egg, then hell yeah, I'm starting Gerald Everett because his floor, I believe, is higher than anybody else's on this list.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I like it, guys. You can find our list over at goodoldboysff.com under the rankings, weekly waiver wire rankings. So they are there, published. You can see them, all that good stuff. We'll also get the weekly rankings up there later this week as well. So you can head over there, check that out, all that good stuff. But we got a Thursday night game coming up here, and this one is an AFC West divisional showdown where you've got the Kansas City Chiefs favored by 4 going to the Chargers. Over under 50.5. What's your thoughts on this one?
I'm taking the under in this game. These teams don't typically have high scoring affairs. Thursday night games, the scoring has been down a little bit. And I'm also going to take the Chargers to cover. I think it's a field goal game. I don't see the Chiefs running away with this, especially being on the road. So I like the under, and I like the Chargers to be able to keep it close, right? And like I said, field goal game. Chiefs very well could take the money line. I'm fine with that if that's where you want to place your bets, but I do not think the Chiefs are going to cover the 4 in this one.
Yeah, I've got the opposite approach. I'm with you on the under. I don't think that this will get hit, right? Like last week was an anomaly when it comes to how some of the scoring has gone for the Thursday night game, where you saw the over get hit on that one. And it all had to do with the fact that you saw Pittsburgh try and come storming back there at the end, which, they about to – anyway – crazy deal where that was the over that ended up getting hit. But some of these other ones that we've seen that we would have thought we could have swore that the over would have gotten hit has played under as well. And this is the way that this one feels here as well, right? Like you think about it from the standpoint, where the Chargers defense is very susceptible is through the ground game and through the run game. And quite frankly, that's not the way that Kansas City has liked to play over the last few seasons here as well. They want to try and air the ball out. They want to try and use the short passing game as an extension of the run game. But really, running backs have come alive when they played the Chargers this season. So maybe we see a CEH sighting, and maybe he has a good game here. I would expect that to be the case. Maybe a Darrell Williams type of game here a little bit. But I'm going to take Kansas City. I'm also going to take the under. This one has the feel to me like it's going to be like a 27-21, 27-22 type of game is really kind of how I see this one playing out, with Kansas City winning it on the road. And then Alex had it as the Kansas City and the over on this one as well. I think he probably expects a little bit more of a shootout going through on that one there. Any other thoughts on this game?
I think that this LA Chargers defense is built to stop Kansas City. You get after the passer, you play sound in the secondary, and you force the Chiefs to use their running game and kind of take this underneath stuff, which Patrick Mahomes has shown he's not the most patient guy when you're playing the cover 2 shell and forcing everything underneath. On top of the fact that the Chargers are playing good football right now. I mean, they win games convincingly, and then they lose games that maybe they shouldn't lose. But I do think this Chargers team is built to make a little bit of a run here, and I think the Chiefs' winning streak might be in jeopardy here this game. So it will be a good game. But I just think these divisional games, you and I are all over this under. I don't think this is going to be a very high-scoring game. With it being a Thursday night divisional game, they typically hit the under almost convincingly. Like it's a lot of times not even close. So I feel really confident about the under, and then we'll just have to see who comes out on top as far as the 4 goes.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those that it's also not going to surprise me if we look up at the end of this thing and it's, 21-17, something like that type of deal. That could very well play out that type of deal as well. So I'm right there with you on the under there. So let's go ahead and head over to the Pines and the Shines. Who you got for the Pine this week?
So my Pine this week, as we alluded to towards the beginning of the show, is Michael Pittman. I think the Patriots are in their groove. They realize what needs to be done. And yes, the Colts are fighting back, but they're going to make the Colts do things differently than how they want to. So you might see some more T.Y. Hilton. You might see some more Paris Campbell. You might see some Mo Alley Cox trying to come up with some of this. Obviously, you're going to get a heavy dose of Jonathan Taylor if he can get it going on the ground. But you might see a little bit more Nyheim Hines than what we've seen in weeks past, as they use the passing game a bit more to try and drive the offense down the field. Either way, I don't think Pittman finds the end zone. New England's secondary is much better than Tampa Bay's, and I do think they implement kind of the same game plan. So I am not starting Michael Pittman anywhere unless I absolutely have to this week.
No, I can get behind that one. Absolutely. So my pine is Leonard Fournette, and it has a lot to do with the matchup on this one, right? Like, you look at Leonard Fournette, there's a lot of places out there that already have him as a top 5 running back on this week. I don't see that being the case. Now, if you've got Leonard Fournette, I'm not saying to bench him, but just saying to temper expectations, that I don't think that he's going to necessarily get to those projections and get to his expectations there. The Saints defense, while having not been great in a lot of other areas, and that Saints team not being great in a lot of other areas, they take a lot of pride in their run game and their ability to stop the run. So that is how I'm going to see this one playing out there, where you're going to see Leonard Fournette being held in check here a little bit, and watch for Tom Brady to just go through the air. And I see a big Tom Brady. This has a big time feel of a Chris Godwin type of game in this one. So I would look for him to have an absolutely monster game, and Leonard Fournette to be held in check there a little bit. And then don't have any pines or shines for Alex at this time, but I'm sure we'll get those from him before the week is out. But let's go ahead and head on over into the shines. Who you got that you're shining for week 15?
I'm shining Jimmy G. I'm a believer in these multi-touchdown games that he's had lately. We are seeing George Kittle come back in force here to end the season. So I think it's going to be a lot of George Kittle. You'll see a good amount of Debo, whether it's running the ball or receiving. If Elijah Mitchell's back, you're going to see a ton through the ground too. But this Atlanta team really isn't stopping anybody, and the 49ers are on a tear trying to make it to the playoffs. So I think the Niners put the final nail in the Falcons' coffin this week, and Jimmy G is going to be a key component in that. So I like Jimmy G as my shine of the week.
I like it. I like it a lot. I'm going to go with a guy named Jalen Hurts, who has been pretty darn good in the quarterback position all season long. He's had a couple of hiccups here and there when it comes to that, but I am expecting him to have a very, very big game when it comes to this week. They're taking on the Washington football team. The Washington football team has given up the most points to opposing fantasy quarterbacks on the season, and I don't see that changing up here. Right, the pass rush has been a little bit banged up there from the Washington football team. So Jalen Hurts would absolutely expect him to have a very big game. It's not going to surprise me when we look up when it's all said and done and see that he has probably 250 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns, 50 yards on the ground, and an additional touchdown on the ground, which is just going to make for an absolutely fantastic fantasy day for you. And the Eagles are still fighting for some playoff contention here, things like that. They've got a pretty good matchup down the road here to try and win some things and try and sneak in there. So looking for Jalen Hurts to have a very big game this week.
Do you have any concerns over the Philly quarterback controversy or a potential quick hook for Jalen Hurts if he does not get off quickly against the football team, and that they bring Minshew in to try and spark the passing game?
No, I don't think so, because again, that's one of those that the Washington football team has been bad against opposing quarterbacks. They've been bad against opposing wide receivers. They haven't been great against opposing running backs here. So, Philadelphia has definitely shown that they want to run. They want to establish the ball. You'll see Miles Sanders in there. You'll see a heavy dose of a lot of Philadelphia Eagles running backs, and I expect them to also use Jalen Hurts as a lot of that RPO type of situation to get that going. Jalen Hurts is a more dynamic runner and a better runner than Gardner Minshew is, so it fits what I think that they're looking to do on this one more so. So no, I'm not necessarily looking for a quick hook on that one. The Eagles, you know what you've got on Gardner Minshew. You have enough game film, enough game tape out there on him throughout his career so far to see what that looks like. Jalen Hurts, I think they're really trying to see if he really is going to be their guy for at least a couple of seasons here to build around. That kind of thing there. It's just from the standpoint that I don't think that you're ever going to see Jalen Hurts become an all-pro type of quarterback, but I do think that you're going to see him be a very serviceable starter in the league and a guy that's going to be able to win you games down the stretch, and certainly not lose games as well, being able to keep plays alive with his legs, things like that. So I think I probably see him, 250 through the air, 2 touchdowns. We'll probably see an interception out there. And I see him probably good for another 50 yards on the ground and a touchdown there. So I'm thinking that he's going to have a very good game. I don't think we're going to see a Taysom Hill experience from Jalen Hurts this week. So you're welcome for that one. All righty. So that's going to wrap up the pines and the shines for this week. And that's going to lead us into another kind of segment where we're talking, what do you do rest of season type of thing? What are you doing for the playoffs with some of these guys here? And for the most part, a lot of your roster decisions are going to be kind of locked in there. I know some different formats lock the rosters, some things like that, but you're going to have a lesser pickings on when it comes to some of that. But one of the players that I wanted to bring up is, what are you doing with Dak Prescott?
I'm starting him.
Okay.
I mean, it's that simple. I think Jerry coming out, and Jerry has a weird way of making his point known through the media, right? Sometimes it's extremely blunt. Other times it's a little bit more subtle. This week it was extremely blunt. Well, I'm not going to say that. I don't want to say that Dak's slumping, but it's kind of true. Okay, shots heard, and it truly is. This offense right now has to run through Dak because it can't run through Zeke. And so you have to find ways to make that happen. You have so much potential in the skill position room for Dallas that Dak should not have any issue just driving the ball down the field. Dalton Schultz has been fairly non-existent these last few weeks. He needs to get back involved. Like, you need to bring him back. You have Amari Cooper back now, CeeDee Lamb, and Michael Gallup. So you have your top 4 pass catchers there. Yes, Cedric Wilson is out. He's on the COVID list, one of the 64 players that we were talking about earlier. The offensive line is relatively healthy this deep in the season for Dallas, and their defense has been playing much better than anticipated. So, yeah, this is on Dak, and it's his time to shine. But if I drafted him, you drafted him in what, round 3 or 4 in single quarterback leagues, and if you're in a super flex, you drafted him in round 1 or 2. So you're playing. Like, you don't have a choice. You can't afford to sit him at this point unless you manage to pick up. I don't even know who you would have picked up that I would start over him in a single quarterback league along the way. Like, your options
Dak or
aren't
Kirk
that
Cousins?
great. I'm playing Dak.
Okay.
I'm playing Dak. Cousins might be a truly safer option at this point, but I am not sitting Dak Prescott for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, that's kind of the only guy I could think of that would have been a potential waiver wire pickup, something like that, in a single QB league that you could have done on that one. And right now, Kirk Cousins doing a little bit more on a points per game basis than Dak is, but it's a 0.2 difference in points per game there. So just an interesting kind of side note there. What were some guys that you're curious about? What are you looking to do with some of your guys' rest of season?
Honestly, same team, different position. I was just talking about earlier, Zeke.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Zeke is a guy that I am now thinking, well, crap. Like, I have to change my mindset on where Zeke's going to finish. Like, he is a flex play right now. Like, he just doesn't have it. If he falls into the end zone, he has RB2 upside. But he is a flex play right now because he's only seeing 13 to 15 touches. Quite frankly, if Pollard is able to come back from this torn plantar fascia in his foot, I'm starting Tony Pollard over Zeke this week against the Giants. Like, if it comes to that, I will start Tony Pollard over Zeke. That he's going to play. So there's an option there. Hopefully you handcuff Zeke, like we talked about at the beginning of the season. But he's a guy I'm worried about him. Like, I absolutely am worried about it. And what am I going to do? That was my RB1 for the season. Again, a guy drafted in the first round that I am limping with him into the playoffs right now, and I do not love what I'm seeing.
Absolutely. What about a guy like James Robinson, right? The pine for you last week, coming off a 6-carry, 4-yard type of performance. It seems like Jacksonville has got kind of a lot of different things going on there. Playing football, not necessarily one of those things going on down there in Jacksonville. So what are you looking to do with a guy like James Robinson down the stretch here?
I think he has a bounce back week. Like, the Houston Texans cure all ill will. So I think he does find a way to bounce back. Again, RB2 type. Like, I don't think I'm expecting an RB1 performance out of James Robinson. That Jacksonville team is not very good, but the Houston team is worse. So it's a battle for the bottom of the barrel. Man, that's a mouthful right there. But that's what it is right there in the AFC South. So I expect them to find the running game a bit more. I know Trevor Lawrence has been outspoken about this. The fan base has been outspoken about this. There are a lot of people calling for Urban Meyer's head already. There's tons of rumors swirling around this organization and Urban Meyer's alleged ineptitude to lead and coach this team. You need to find some sort of consistency. And right now, your best source of consistency is James Robinson, because Trevor Lawrence is taking a lot of lumps this season.
Yeah, it was funny. I saw a thing out there, and I wish I could remember the source on it. But one of the somebody was out there giving kind of a hot take, saying that Trevor Lawrence is a bust. In which case, I think it's one of those that we're still way too early in the career to call that a bust. Maybe for fantasy, if you want to come out and say that it was a bust, you could potentially say that with where he was drafted. But and then I also saw some things that were trying to compare that that if Trevor Lawrence had been on New England, that he wouldn't have had the same type of success as what Mac Jones is experiencing up there. So just some kind of interesting thoughts there. Wanted to get your thoughts on those.
That's horse shit.
Okay, we're aligned again.
If he was on the New England roster, his stat line would look completely different, because Bill Belichick coaches completely different than Urban Meyer does. Like, that's such an erroneous take. Like, get out of here with that. You're just trying to get clicks. The fact of the matter is, Trevor Lawrence has not performed as well as we thought he would. But up until
he doesn't have anybody to throw to either.
He doesn't have anybody to throw to. He doesn't have an offensive line. Like, we've been spoiled here the last couple years with number one overall quarterbacks coming in and making a splash their rookie season. Baker was able to do it the back end of his rookie season after Tyrod Taylor got hurt. We saw
had a rookie record.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we saw what Kyler was able to do his rookie season, which, got everyone excited about his potential. But guys, what Trevor Lawrence is going through right now is no different than what a lot of really, really good quarterbacks have experienced their rookie seasons. And quite frankly, this is more common than not.
Right.
Like, everyone wanted to read into the tea leaves and didn't want to miss the bandwagon and everything else. I mean, we have the file saved, Derek. I mean, neither one of us had Trevor Lawrence ranked in the top 20 for our preseason rankings. Like, this is a function of fantasy versus reality in the mind, not even the game. He was coming into a bad offense with nobody to throw the ball to, with a rookie head coach. He lost his, what we all assume would be his security blanket in Travis Etienne before the season even started. Like, they finally get Dan Arnold, and that starts to help a little bit. And then Dan Arnold goes on IR. It goes from Laviska Shenault to Marvin Jones. You had
DJ Chark went on IR.
Yeah, DJ Chark went on IR early in the season. Like, what has gone right for the Jacksonville Jaguars? Like, their defense can't get off the field, so it's putting him in positions to where he has to throw the ball. This isn't all on Trevor Lawrence. He's in a bad organization and a bad team with bad players around him, and this is going to take a while. Like, I am fearful for Trevor Lawrence that he is going to be the next David Carr, because I don't trust Jacksonville to be able to build the organization properly around what this kid can do.
Right. Yeah, that's probably more accurate than anything else. But yeah, absolutely right. Like, you look at this thing, there's a reason that Jacksonville had the number 1 overall pick. There's also a reason that they had a ton of draft picks, because they traded away every veteran that they could that had any value associated that they could get draft picks for. And so you've got a very young team, a NFL head coach that this is a new experience for him, right? Like, you see a lot of previous NFL, or a lot of coaches that make the jump from college to NFL, and they talk about the fact that it's a completely different experience having to coach college kids versus coaching professional athletes. Like, it is a completely different mindset. You're getting better talent than you ever had on any of those college teams. No mistaking it. No matter what college team you throw up there, the NFL will have more talented rosters on that. But at the same time, too, it's a different mindset when it's all said and done there. And you've got to treat and go about handling the business completely differently than being a college coach out there. And this was one of the things that we talked about before the season as well, that we were concerned about James Robinson being productive in this offense as well, because of the fact that we thought that there was going to be an RPO style offense put in, because that's what Urban Meyer likes to run and likes to see. And again, we've seen that at times not play out well. You've seen the offense at times seems to be fighting itself. So I think you're absolutely right. And just, I saw that and wanted to get your thoughts on that one as well. But, no, I think you're probably right. I think if the Patriots had Trevor Lawrence, the Patriots would be at least 9-4 at this point, and potentially looking to be. They probably would have picked up 1 or 2 more wins in there. But the secret to Mac Jones winning it is not based on his right arm. It's based on him being a game manager, not turning the ball over, and playing behind a run game and a defense. Like, that's which, by the way. If you want a rookie quarterback to be successful, set the game up where the game is able to be slowed down for them, and you put them in position to win. That's not what Jacksonville has done in the slightest with Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, absolutely. No clue how to manage their personnel. So
no,
I feel bad for the kid.
Yes. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out down the stretch, and we'll see how this, one of those things you look back 5 years and that's where you can really look at and you can say, okay, that quarterback was a bust. That one hit. That one was a bust. That one hit. That one had an okay career type of thing, which that's really where we're going to see how this one looks and plays out, because it's going to take about that kind of time length, and that'll tell the tale. Do these guys get their 5th-year option picked up? Because if they do, I don't know that you can call them a bust. If they don't, that's where they start getting into bust territory. So very cool. Well, Kevin, I think that's going to take us down here to the end of it. Any final thoughts for the viewers and listeners?
The main thing is just, again, I opened with this. I'm going to close with this. Keep an eye on your waiver wires and the depth charts for guys that you have who are on the COVID list. Like, be mindful of this. We are coming into the season where you want to be as risk adverse as possible, unless you are a huge underdog. You're going to ride the guys who got you there. Like, don't get cute about this. If there's a glaring need to switch someone out and you have the option to sit Zeke because you picked up Elijah Moore and you have, someone else on your roster, like, start Nick Chubb, Elijah Moore, and a wide receiver if that's how your roster shook out.
I think Elijah Moore is still
Oh,
on
yes.
IR.
Sorry. Yes. Elijah Mitchell. Start your extra wide receiver there. But I understand that. But don't get cute. Like, don't go chasing Deshaun Jackson 80-yard touchdowns and think that that's going to save your week. Like,
You're better off chasing Van Jefferson if that's what you need.
Yeah, absolutely. I like Van Jefferson a lot. I think his consistency has shown, and he's another guy with Odell going on the COVID list. Like, Van Jefferson is absolutely a guy that you need to look at starting in your flex spot this week, and he could prove to be extremely viable. On the flip side, with the Cleveland Browns, all those pass catchers are in COVID protocol. I think they're going to try and run the ball this week because those guys haven't been getting the game reps. They haven't been able to be in the film rooms. This seems like a run-heavy game plan this week due to lack of options, i.e. Nick Chubb, Dearness Johnson, as we kind of touched on briefly in the waiver wire segment. Like, take those smart chances, educated chances, not just dart throws saying, well, I hope this works for me.
Right. Yep. This is the time of year that the only reason to get cute and start a Matt Flynn type of thing is when you're a big underdog. And that one's a little shout out there to Alex, which we're never going to let him live that one down. And, thank you, Matt Flynn. So, but yeah, no, that is very sage advice, and absolutely, guys, right? Like, play the guys that got you here. Stick to what it is. If you guys have questions, whatever, hit us up, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Good Old Boys FF. Do us a favor, head over to the youtube.com, and search the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button, ring the bell. It's one of the best ways to help support this show. And we very much appreciate seeing you guys in the chat and seeing you every time we go live. We do keep the show running year round. So during the off season, we're going to go deep diving into teams and going player by player, going through it. So you want to leg up going into your fantasy season next year? I got a hint. Tuesday nights, 11 p.m. Eastern. You need to be tuning in, or you can catch it on the audio version or the video version on YouTube, audio version, wherever you listen to podcasts. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Alex will be back next week. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good one. Be safe.